don't have democracy in our workplaces. We never did. The commitment to democracy is verbal in this society, limited to that voting activity where we live, but not where we work.
Hashtag forced to vote has made me realize there isn't a left in America, and that's the problem. There even the thing we all agree on, we couldn't agree on when it came time to do it. Half the left said, don't be mean, and let's wait for a better time.
We are just deprived of a national conversation about anything to the extent that we have one. It's just about these stupid culture war issues. It's not about what's really happening right now.
Hello, everyone. We have a really interesting show today. Wow, we have a lot more people today than we did the other days in the past. Wow, like a lot of action. All of a sudden, people are coming. Hello. Hi. Good to see everyone. Let me address the live chat real quick. So, What Up America says, yo. GD Pop says, so what the rule on naming a bill? You can have the bill do more than 10% of what it's named for. COVID infrastructure, $2 trillion each. What's next? Okay, so let me talk about what we're going to be doing today. Today we're going to... Oh, I'm way over there. Let me move myself real quick. There we go. So today we're going to be talking about Turning Point USA with this fun video. It's just a warm-up. This is easy for me. This is how I like to start my show. And then after that, we'll get into the obvious things that we need to discuss. Let me just fix this real quick. There we go. I have OCD. Okay. All right. So Turning Point USA wants to convince you that a higher minimum wage equals more expensive childcare. Now, there are multiple issues that I have with this video, but I'm going to let the video speak for itself, and then we'll talk about it throughout.
Here's your daily freedom seed.
Again, this is so weird. I don't understand why there's I know I made like a fancy intro and everything, but like every part about the things that I have in this video that you're watching like have a meaning. Like when I have a background, for example, everything that you see behind me has a purpose. I use it and I actually love it. But I don't understand when people make these weird, like, I don't know, it's whatever. But anyways, that's not the point. Let's watch this video.
Left-wing lawmakers and politicians in America continue to propose minimum wage hikes, hoping to provide more money to people who make minimum wage. Last month, we talked about the reality of inflation, that the price of goods and services goes up as the minimum wage increases. So
we'll talk about that claim in a moment. After this video.
You don't actually get to keep more money in your pocket at the end of the day. A new study by the Heritage Foundation has identified one key area where prices are sure to skyrocket as a result of the proposed $15 federal minimum wage: childcare costs. Fact, if we were to...
So I'm going to go through every single citation that she's going through here because she's totally screwing up here. Like she's making massive mistakes, but I want to let her speak first.
Implement a $15 minimum wage, the cost of childcare would, on average, increase by 21% across the country. That's an extra $3,728 per year for 2 children. In some states, the cost of childcare could grow up to 43%, or more than $6,000. The truth is, raising the minimum wage sounds really good, but causes everything else to become more expensive. So it doesn't do much good in the end. I'm Isabel Brown, and you're watching Freedom Seed. A federal minimum wage hike would make childcare even more expensive.
So then we shouldn't increase the minimum wage. That's her conclusion. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through the citations that she put forward. So first up, you should probably know that the first citation she used was the Heritage Foundation. And the Heritage Foundation is known for climate change denial, voter fraud claims, the funding of it's pretty fucked up and corrupt. Everything about the Heritage Foundation is corrupt. So what is the thing that she's referencing? What's the specific study? Maybe I'm just attacking the publisher and not the actual article itself. Let's take a look at what is actually being referenced specifically. Okay, here it is. I pulled it up. So this is from the Heritage Foundation, the impact of a $15 minimum wage on the cost of childcare. Now, this is from Rachel Gressler, who does not have a PhD in economics. I really want to emphasize she does not have a PhD in economics. She has a master's degree. I don't even think she has a master's degree in economics, though. But if you actually read this article, which I did, I'll save you the time, okay? So here's the bullshit claim that's being made, okay? Where is it? Here it is. Okay, so mandating that all childcare workers receive at least $15 per hour would result in significant cost increases for childcare providers, with childcare regulations limiting childcare providers' ability to reduce other expenditures. Higher costs would be passed on to families through significant childcare price increases. The median wage for childcare workers across the U.S. is $11.65 per hour. Thus, a $15 minimum wage would require a majority of childcare workers to receive significant wage increases. So far, that's technically correct. There are plenty of childcare workers who are making only $11.25 an hour or $7.25 an hour, the minimum wage. I like how they just want to emphasize the median is $11.65. Just ignore the fact that, you know, pretty much everyone's really making just $7.25 an hour, which is the minimum wage. But anyways, yeah, the minimum wage is probably going to increase the wages of childcare workers. Good. Now, using wage distribution data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Occupational Employment Statistics, I estimate that a $15 minimum wage would require an average increase of 29% in the wages of childcare workers across 50 states. This does not include additional FICA taxes and other potential costs that employers would be required to pay along with with higher wages. So let me just translate what that means. I think that the number is 29% increase. Rachel, I estimate she's not going to give any sort of mathematical background as to where she got that number. Rachel Gressler. Who is Rachel Gressler? Well, I'm glad you asked because we can find that out too. Rachel Gressler works for the Heritage Foundation, and she just has a master's degree, and that's it. And so her areas of expertise, jobs and labor, Social Security. Why? Why is that her area of expertise? What qualifies her to be an expert in jobs and labor and Social Security? What qualifies her? Oh, she has a master's degree and she works at the Heritage Foundation, a corrupt foundation. So everything that this video is relying on, which is the Heritage Foundation article, is based on an opinion from a person who has a master's degree. Okay, so let me give you an actual article so that you can all understand like what it looks like to actually do science and not to like make up your science instead. So, according to the California State University San Bernardino, according to Daniel McDonald and Eric Nilsson, the abstract of this June 2016 article reads, "We analyzed the price pass-through effect of the minimum wage and used the results to provide insight into the competitive structure of low-wage labor markets. Using monthly price series, we find that the pass-through effect is entirely concentrated on the month that the minimum wage change goes into effect and is much smaller than what the canonical literature has found." We then discuss why our results differ from that literature, noting the impact of series interpolation in generating most of the previous results. We then use the variation in the size of the minimum wage change to evaluate the competitive nature of low-wage labor markets. Finally, we exploit the rich variation in minimum wage policy of the last 10 to 15 years, including the rise of state and city level minimum wage changes and the increased use of indexation, to investigate how the extent of price pass-through varies by policy context. This paper contributes to literature by clarifying our understanding of the dynamics and magnitude of the pass-through effect and enriching the discussion of how different policies may shape the effect that minimum wage hikes have on prices. The key claim there is right here, that the effect of a minimum wage increase, it doesn't just immediately affect everything, cause inflation. It doesn't do the things that this lady is trying to say, this person is trying to say. So, according to the science, California State University, San Bernardino, using monthly price series, we find that the pass-through effect is entirely concentrated on the month that the minimum wage change goes into effect and is much smaller than what the canonical literature has found. And you can, when I post this on YouTube, I will link in the description this article so you can all read the actual details. See, unlike this person who decided that in their description, they don't even want to give you the hyperlink to the Heritage Foundation. Look at this. I want to show you something real quick. So it's really hard to see, but if you can carefully see, there's a really long URL here. That's the citation. So it's not even in the description. I had to type this out. That was really annoying, Turning Point USA. Please don't make me work this hard next time. So yeah, let me make a few comments about this, about the minimum wage and childcare. So first off, how do you fix the problem of expensive childcare? And why is childcare expensive? Well, simply put, childcare is a private market. Childcare is a private market, which doesn't make any sense. If you think about it really carefully, we all need this thing. Childcare. Children need childcare. If you don't have childcare, then you're not going to have a productive society. Then everyone's just going to stay home. And then that's not a good thing. So childcare should be a public utility. Childcare should be free and guaranteed to every parent. And you should get a certain amount, and you should get, there are tons of unique ways of doing this that make it like utopian and really cool. But then the other thing is, whenever people whenever people sign up for childcare, they usually get like subsidized or something for that childcare. They get paid to go through that to that childcare. But what's really happening is that money is going to the CEOs of the childcare and not the workers. If you make it a public good, then the childcare workers themselves make a shit ton of money. Like all of a sudden, they make a shit ton of money. We can pay them extremely well because the money isn't being sucked by a CEO. So simply put, childcare should be a public good. What about the minimum wage? Where am I on the minimum wage? So I think $15 is not enough. I think $15 is just absolutely not enough. I think that we should be focusing on other productive economic ways of helping Americans. I think we should increase the minimum wage, but I think we should be talking a lot more about UBI and specifically productive ways of doing UBI. So Andrew Yang's policy, his form of doing UBI, let me do a little side note here about my opinion about Andrew Yang. I know this could be unpopular, but hear me out, okay? Here's the opinion, okay? So Andrew Yang wants to give you cash. And the thing about giving you cash is that your landlord can take that cash. Your grocery store can take that cash. the people who sell your laptop can take that cash. Someone's going to take that cash, right? And a lot of companies can take that cash away from you, right? You're going to use that cash somehow. But because it's up for grabs from everyone, it causes inflation. That causes inflation. So how do you prevent that? Well, you don't just get rid of UBI. UBI is a good idea. I love UBI, but you just add one extra little asterisk that you designate chunks of that money towards specific things like food, rent, I think childcare should just be free. I think we need to figure out how to change the housing market as well, but because the concept of private housing is fucking stupid. But that's beside the point. When you have a bunch of people that are trying to get at your cash, then they're all going to raise their prices, or it's going to increase prices. And I'm running into some technical difficulties from my camera real quick. Hold on, let me fix that. Okay, why is it doing that? Sorry, everyone. Let me just fix this real quick. There we go. That's better. All right, so if you designate your UBI as US currency, then the problem you run into is everyone's going to try to get that money. But if you say, okay, we're going to make 50% of it cash and 50% of it we're going to designate towards specific needs that you probably need, and that way no one can grab this cash from you except your landlord or except your local grocery store or something like that. So you want to be able to have some of UBI as cash, and some of the UBI needs to be guaranteed for specific needs. And eventually socialism is the long run, right? Socialism leads to communism, and you all know how the future is. Utopia and everything. We're getting there. We'll get there. We'll get there, people. We'll get there. So that's Turning Point USA. That was my fun article for the day, but let's get into the actual news. Let me save that file real quickly, and then let me see if everything's synced up still. Okay, that's good. All right. Let me real quickly. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. I need to load up the next story, and then I'm going to give it maybe like a minute or two. So we'll be right back. Hey, thank you. What up, America? You saved my. Thank you. Yes, I cut out the sound there. Thank you. All right, so let's get into the infrastructure plan. This is the infrastructure plan. Let me move that out of the way so I don't look like I have my face, right? So Joe Biden wants to spend $2 trillion on infrastructure over the course of 8 years, which is really nothing. It's really nothing. That's how much we should be spending to be maintaining the infrastructure that we currently have. So that should be maintenance money. And AOC wants to respond by saying, I want a $10 trillion plan. Now, of course, is this going to do anything? Is AOC actually trying to fight for you? No, of course not. Of course she isn't. You can't just ask for stuff, right? If she keeps doing this thing where she thinks that, hey, if I do the same thing over and over again, maybe eventually the result will change. Maybe if I just keep asking nicely, I'll get whatever I want. That's AOC. That's what AOC is doing right now. So she's just begging, and it's not working, and it's not going to work. So Joe Biden still wants to do a $2 trillion plan, even after hearing AOC's offer, even after hearing what AOC said on TV. The Biden administration doesn't care. They act like they haven't heard it yet, too, which is kind of strange. So let's take a look at Biden's senior advisor and how he responds to AOC's criticism of this infrastructure plan. And I'll give you my opinion about the infrastructure plan later at the end of this.
For more on that plan, let's talk to one of its architects. Brian Deese is the director of the White House's National Economic Council and one of Joe Biden's top advisors. Brian, thanks so much for coming on the show. $2 trillion is obviously a huge amount of money, but there is a huge job to be done as well. And some people are arguing that this money is great, but simply is not enough. Have a listen to Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez last night.
This is $2.25 trillion over 8 years. For context, because these huge numbers are hard to understand, for context, we passed an almost $2 trillion COVID relief package that's supposed to last us 1 year.
And now this one will only last us 8. So we're going to do the same thing as we did as the last bill. We're going to spend the same amount of money, but this time over 8 years instead of 1. Because when we gave you the $1,400 checks and we saw that, wow, Americans liked that, we decided, you know what? We should do nothing. We should do nothing. We shouldn't give them another $1,400 check. Yeah, we should just pretend like $2.25 trillion is going to do something over 8 years. It's not. And if you want proof of that, Obama had his own infrastructure plan that he laid out in February, I believe, and of 2009. And he asked for like $700 billion over 10 years. And how did that do? What did that do? Nothing. It didn't create jobs, enough jobs. It didn't save the economy. And that's why we ended up getting Trump elected in 2016. Obama caused Trump. Clinton caused Trump. Neoliberalism caused Trump. And Trump caused Joe Biden. And now we're just going back and forth between really just a one-party state. We're just trying to pretend like the Republicans and Democrats are different, but they're not. They're really not. All right, let's keep going.
With some provisions lasting up to 2 years. So the $1,400 stimulus checks, that big package that we felt in our lives.
That big package that we felt in our lives. If it's so big and if we felt it so much and it was so good, why not just keep doing that? Why not just do that again and again and again and again, right? Just keep doing that. It works. It doesn't screw up the economy, right? So this whole concept of, oh, it's expensive and everything, right? Come on. We've gone through this like for decades now, and the arguments are very clear that we can spend trillions of dollars because we're the richest nation in the world, because rich people are accumulating trillions of dollars. So we have the ability to extract trillions of dollars and pay for programs that cost trillions of dollars. We can also redirect resources. So for example, Medicare for all, which I don't think is enough. I think we need to go much further than that. I think we need a nationalized healthcare and health insurance industry. I think I'm a socialist, so I think the whole industry, every industry should be socialized. But that said, if we just look at Medicare for all, it costs something like $32 trillion over 10 years, $3.2 trillion every single year, which is a lot less than how much we spend in GDP towards the healthcare industry and health insurance, which is somewhere, I think it's over 20% now. I think we spend more than 20% of our money on healthcare now, which is just absolutely unreasonable. So the thing about infrastructure is that when you invest in infrastructure, you're investing. It's an investment, right? If you spend $100,000, or let's say, you spend $100,000 to construct a property, and let's say the value of the property is $1 million. Well, then you just made $900,000. And then on top of that, at any point you can sell it and then take the like there's a benefit to owning the things that you make. Because whatever infrastructure that the government builds, that's the infrastructure that the government owns. And so, for example, if they build public housing, then those are houses that can be given to citizens forever. We can house the homeless. It's a public good. We don't have people breathing down our necks saying, give me more money, give me more money, give me more money, give me more. We want to get away from that, right? That's a bad system. Public housing, you can eliminate that problem and guarantee housing as a right. And we're getting really close to that. And in California, we need to be fighting for that hard, really hard in California, especially in California, because I think that's actually possible. I think we can get housing as a right in California. I live in LA, and so I think that we can replace the LA City Council, and I think that we can recall the governor, Gavin Newsom. That would be great. I think those two things would benefit progressives and leftists in California, and I think we can move on to that utopia that we're all trying to get to. Well, at least California is. Everyone else left to Texas. All the Republicans left to Texas and Florida. They're trying to make it super cool, but it's really not. We're still the 5th largest economy in the world, by the way. Just want to remind everyone, we're still making enough money in revenue, in tax revenue, to pay for federal programs. California can pay for federal programs, but I'm digressing quite a bit. Let's get back to this video.
We're deployed on a shorter timeline.
Brian, doesn't AOC have a point?
Well, it's great to be here, and I would say this is a historic plan.
Does she have a point? This is a historic plan. That's my response to you. So basically, no. That's his response. No. Because this plan's already great. Now he's about to just love on how this plan's only $2 trillion over 8 years. $250 billion every year. That's it.
It's the single largest investment in jobs in modern American history. And its goal is to do something a bit different economically than the rescue plan. The rescue plan is intended to speed relief to families and businesses right now. This jobs plan is...
By the way, it didn't do that. There are still people who are homeless. There's still people who don't have jobs. There's still people who can't pay rent. And there's still people who don't have health insurance. So your bill didn't work. You can't say, well, let's just wait. No, that's the problem right now. We're in the middle of a pandemic and an economic depression. We're not asking to wait. Anyways, let's keep going.
It's a capital investment plan in America. And so the design is really intended to allow us to build, rebuild, repair, and position the country for the future. So this is a big and bold plan, but to your intro, the details matter, the specifics matter, and we feel really good about the fact that targeting things like upgrading all lead pipes in the country, making sure everybody has access to high-speed internet.
Well, I'm going to go through the infrastructure bill myself because I have a lot of criticisms of this bill. This bill, people are not paying attention to this bill. There are a lot of YouTubers, leftist YouTubers, that are making this bill seem as though it's completely innocent. There's a lot of corporate shit in this one. And I'll show you after this video, but I forgot what he was saying. Let me catch myself up to speed. Sorry, everyone. I have ADHD, so I have to every once in a while kind of figure out where I was.
The details matter, the specifics matter, and we feel really good about the fact that targeting things like upgrading all lead pipes in the country, making sure everybody has access to high-speed internet.
I remember what I was going to say now. Okay, so broadband internet, right? Get high-speed internet or whatever, right? So if we're going to build infrastructure, we need to first accept that the future of the internet is not broadband internet. That is not the future of the internet. That is a really stupid... Wires are really stupid. Okay? The future infrastructure should not be based on wires. Okay? If you want a good system, a good infrastructure for internet, you buy Tesla's Starlink or something. Or you just make your own fucking Starlink and throw your own satellites up in space. And that's how you can ensure internet for everyone. For everyone. Literally worldwide. We can do that. Starlink could do that in theory. We're like that close to get... And so we shouldn't be spending money on like broadband internet. No, we should be trying to get them internet in ways that actually make sense for the future. I think they should get internet. I think people who are in rural America, I think they should get internet like right fucking now. And they can technically with Starlink. And I think that it shouldn't be... I think that you shouldn't have to pay money for the internet. That's stupid. You want to be able to hear my opinion? You have to pay someone first. What? No, internet should be a right. Right? Like, especially considering that the internet houses social media platforms. And the whole thing about platforms is that they have Section 230, which means that you're a platform and you allow people to speak as though it's public space. And so because of that, we should let people have access to that. So I agree with the concept of giving people broadband internet. I don't like the concept of spending that money over 10 fucking years. I think we should be giving people internet within the next like 2 months by just launching several satellites in space, and then you just fucking use lasers. You just fucking use it's the same thing. It's just shooting lasers instead. It's like we're trying to fucking not be advanced. Because in this bill, there's not a high-speed rail. There's no high-speed rail for you. You wanted a high-speed rail? You wanted to be able to go from California to New York in a couple hours? You want to be able to do that? Too fucking bad. Even though we fucking can. And if we do, right? That's a fucking revenue generator. That makes money. So let's... Jeez. It's like this country is honestly trying to... It's like they're trying to go backwards. It's a little weird. I don't know.
The largest investment in R&D in the nation's history. Rebuilding 10,000 bridges across the country. These are the kinds of concrete goals that we need to do. And it's
concrete. Oh, that's what he did. Fuck yeah, man. This is Biden's senior advisor. I want everyone to catch this one. Get ready. Concrete.
Bridges across the country. These are the kinds of concrete goals that we need to do. And it's
nice.
Spaced out right over time.
It's spaced out right over time. Spaced out over 8 years. Do you know where we're going to be in 8 years? Elon Musk is claiming that we're going to be sending human beings on a regular basis off of planet Earth by 2025. That's 4 years. Less than that. Why are we making plans over 8 years ever? Like, we should be at this point when it comes to technological innovation, it's really stupid to make any plans over the course of more than like a year at this point. Because in 1 year, the future is just going to look totally different. We're going to have electric vehicles basically driving everyone around. And if you want information about that, Linus Tech Tips, or Linus, I don't know his name, I'm sorry, but I'll try to, someone remind me in the comment section to link Linus's channel page so I can give him credit. But Linus made a really good argument as to why the future of electric vehicles is that we don't own cars. No one owns a car, and basically Lyft, Uber, or whatever the business is, hopefully it's a public entity, is the thing that's going to, basically summon your car. Your phone is going to summon a car. You want a Tesla? Cool. Just like summon a Tesla. And the nearest Tesla that's driving along the highways or that's parked or something will come drive to you and pick you up and drop you off wherever you need to. And then that Tesla can be used by other people. And so it's a great argument as to why the future of electric vehicles is going to be free mobility, essentially. It's going to be cheap mobility, at least, which is really cool. But if that's the case, roads and bridges, great idea. We need a high-speed rail. We need many high-speed rails. We need like tons of electric bikes and electric scooters everywhere. Like, we need a Green New Deal. And it needs to be all Buy American. All right, well, we're not going to do that because this is going to be spread out for 8 years.
And one of the goals, Brian, isn't it? One of the goals is to fight climate change, an existential threat to humanity. There are a lot of climate activists who, again...
I like how he has to tell him that because there's a chance that this advisor, and there is evidence that this advisor doesn't believe in climate change and like global warming. Listen to the reporter again.
And one of the goals, Brian, isn't it? One of the goals is to fight climate change, an existential threat to humanity. There are a lot of climate activists who, again, say, great start, good money, but they're worried it doesn't do enough to address the danger. A lot of these climate activists, as you know, they've criticized you for having worked at the investment giant BlackRock. They question...
Look at this. He's fucking getting smoked right now. Look at this. The problem with putting a BlackRock alum in charge of greening the economy. Biden's green jobs guru had top role at world's largest investor in deforestation. These are all like extremely problematic things, and this guy is this guy is the guy that these articles are referencing, that all of these articles are referencing. And so this guy doesn't believe in climate change. He doesn't believe in climate change. He doesn't believe in global warming. He doesn't think that's a problem.
Agenda of some people in the administration. They say that if the administration seriously believes, if you, Brian, genuinely believe that climate change is an existential threat, then a few $100 billion over 8 years is just not enough, and we don't have the time. What do you say to those critics?
Great question, by the way.
Well, look, I would say if you look at this plan, every element of this plan is designed to both build to the resilience of the future, where climate change is affecting every element of our lives, but most importantly is investing in the foundations of moving our transportation sector, our power sector, our industrial sector in a low carbon and zero carbon direction. So again, I think the specifics matter, but what's so important...
Direction. So he's answering the question. He's saying, I don't care about global warming. That's what he's saying. And this guy speaks for Biden, by the way, when it comes to the infrastructure bill. That was... does he? I don't know about that. Someone verify that in the comments or in the live chat if you can, please. I don't know. I think this guy... I remember during the cabinet meeting today, Joe Biden gave authority to 4 individuals, Pete Buttigieg and 3 others, I can't remember, to be in charge of speaking for Joe Biden. So if someone can give me that, those are the 3 individuals. I'm really curious if this guy is one of them, because if it is, then we're fucked.
Important and exciting about this plan, I think the president lines clear is that this plan will allow us to fight climate change while creating millions of clean energy jobs.
Over 8 years, though. And so it's not millions of jobs anymore. It's like, I think they estimated 19 million jobs over 8 years. Over 8 years. And then like on top of that, the way they measure that too is it's such an overestimate too, because they take every individual project and they consider that like to be one worker to hire. And so I don't know. I think for me, this guy's full of shit and he doesn't care about global warming. And he gets paid to say stuff like this.
Jobs upgrading our nation's power lines, jobs transforming the transportation sector and investing in electric vehicles.
Investing in electric vehicles, except high-speed rails. No high-speed rails.
And making sure that we build those components, we build that new power and transportation sector here in the United States.
And Brian,
that didn't answer the question at all. Didn't even touch it.
We all want more clean energy jobs. We're glad it's in the bill. But the New York Times is reporting on union concerns and quotes one staffing firm as saying a standard solar project would employ about 250 workers for just under a year. About 1/3 of the workers make $30 an hour or more. The other 2/3 have fewer skills, make hourly wages of less than $20. By contrast, the construction of a gas-powered electricity plant typically lasts 2 to 3 years and employs hundreds of skilled, unionized tradesmen who make $75K a year or more. Brian,
so, do you understand why the minimum wage was not passed in the last bill? People were genuinely confused as to why Joe Biden didn't pass the $15 minimum wage. They were all genuinely confused because Joe Biden actually ran on that really fucking hard. That was basically the only thing he ran on. But he ran on it really aggressively. And so a lot of people were kind of like, what? He's not going to fucking do a 50. He's not even going to do that? He's not even going to do that? Well, now you know why. Because if we can hire workers to build infrastructure for $7.25 per hour, then we can build infrastructure and just hire cheap labor. This is gross, and this is the exploitation of that. This guy is saying it to his face. Let's see how this Biden's senior advisor responds.
how do you convince union members they'll still be able to support their families under this infrastructure package?
Well, look, I think you designed and put a plan out just exactly as Joe Biden did in Pittsburgh. You heard Joe Biden explain he is a union guy, and this plan reflects the reality that we need to invest in good jobs.
But what he just said is that he just showed you that the workers that you're going to be hiring are going to be paid nothing compared to workers that are actually in the industry, like solar panel, that are actually building solar panels and such. So these jobs are bad paying jobs. That was the evidence that was presented to this senior advisor, and he just presupposes the exact opposite was what was just said. So again,
and this plan reflects the reality that we need to invest in good jobs. And as we make federal investments, we need to make sure that they're connected to requirements, that we're improving job quality. We're giving people an opportunity to join a union. You mentioned the cabinet.
Well, we let people join unions. That's cool, right? We're not going to pay you. It's, here's the thing about unions in the government. Unions for the federal government doesn't really care about making a profit. They don't really care. The USPS, the government could just let that fail for all they care. They don't have a fiduciary responsibility or financial incentive to maximize profits. The workers there. The workers are just trying to do their job. That's what they're doing. That's what you try to do. And I forgot what the point I was trying to get at.
Job quality. We're giving people an opportunity to join a union.
That's right. Okay, I'm catching myself up. So a union doesn't have negotiating power, because if you say, hey, we're all just going to unite and we'll all collectively decide to quit if you don't give us higher wages, well, then the federal government's just going to say, okay, quit. We'll just hire somewhere else. We can do that. And if that's going to cause some chaos, then I don't really care. It's not my fucking profits. So that's why your government needs to be run by a democracy. That's why the work that you employ should be democratically employed. We should be employing people based off what the democracy thinks where the jobs should be. If people want a certain job to exist because we really fucking need it, then we should establish that job. That's how we can guarantee worker rights. We can guarantee work for every American. And on top of that, we can guarantee that the work that we're hiring corresponds to what the will of the people want. So democracy doesn't exist here. You're not involved in the conversation, and The only ones that are the corporations, of course.
You mentioned the cabinet meeting at the top. One of the things we talked about in the cabinet meeting today was the issue of Buy American. As we make these significant investments in America, we have to make sure that these investments are tied to U.S. production and U.S. jobs. It's not easy, but I think the way you do it, the way you bring everybody along, is you show that these investments can actually have benefits to our communities as they are going right at the existential threat of climate.
So he's not actually saying this, but the thing that he's actually advocating for is trickle-down economics. And I'm going to show you. Let me show you the actual bill itself, infrastructure bill. It's really hard to read between the lines of this, but let's break this down together. This is from whitehouse.gov. This is what the American Jobs Plan does. I'm going to read the underlined parts because those are the big parts. So fix highways, rebuild bridges, upgrade ports, airports, and transit systems. No high-speed rail, though. Just upgrade shit. Just kind of like make a little bit of tweaks here and there. And don't really spend a lot of money. It's going to modernize 20,000 miles of highway spread over 8 years. Spread over 8 years. Just keep that in mind. We'll repair 10,000 smaller bridges. So providing critical linkages into communities, and it will replace thousands of buses and rail cars, repair hundreds of stations, renew airports, and expand transit and rail into new communities. Notice in here, what's not said are electric vehicles. Specifically electric vehicles throughout this. That's concerning, but that's not the big concern. The problems will arise once we get about halfway down here. Deliver clean drinking water, a renewed electric grid, and high-speed broadband to all Americans. I already gave you my opinion about high-speed broadband. Delivering clean drinking water, that's the Biden administration, the Obama administration really fucked up this one multiple times on live television. Like, Obama really screwed this up, and I highly doubt Biden would be able to solve this problem either. Build, preserve, and retrofit more than 2 million homes and commercial buildings. And I want you to, this is where it gets weird. Build, preserve, and retrofit more than 2 million homes and commercial buildings. And commercial buildings. Modernize our nation's schools and child care facilities. There are no public child care facilities. So they're talking about trickle-down economics. Pay the big dogs to modernize their buildings. Pay the CEOs so that they can make their buildings look nicer. And upgrade veterans' hospitals, the private ones, the ones that are owned by private companies. Even though that's public insurance, it's private companies, the actual hospitals themselves. And I think, I could be wrong about that. Someone could maybe fact check that. And then at the very, very end, you have federal buildings, which is just another way of saying public buildings. So everything before this, they're not public buildings. They're somehow private. And that should concern the heck out of you. And that's to give you more specifics, President Biden's plan will create good jobs, building, rehabilitation, and retrofitting affordable, accessible, energy efficient, and resilient housing, commercial buildings, schools, and childcare facilities all over the country. Private, not public. If it was going to be public, they would have told you that. They would have used that word. Solidify the infrastructure of our care economy by creating jobs and raising wages and benefits for essential home care workers. How about you raise the wage to $15 like you said you would? No, that was in the last bill. We decided not to do that, so now we're moving on. That's how the structure of the presidency is working right now. And they do this on purpose. They like to isolate all the individual policies into different packages, and they separate everything so that you lose all the leverage. You lose all of your leverage, and on top of that, you spread your problems out. So if you spread your problems out, then that means you don't have to address them immediately. You can pick and choose which ones you want to address first. And so you push your problems. That's what the federal government is doing right now. Revitalize manufacturing, secure U.S. supply chains, invest in R&D, and train Americans for the jobs of the future. Nothing about public anything. If we're going to be investing in, the whole point of investing in infrastructure is the government gets to keep the money that it invests. If it builds a road, then that's the government's road. That's not a private road. That's our road. We all get to have that road. Everyone owns that road. So whenever the government wants to do anything, you need to make sure that it's public first, because if it's not, then what it is trickle-down economics. Then it's trickle-down economics. Then it's pay a CEO a bunch of money so that it trickles down and it creates jobs. That's Reaganomics. Create good quality jobs that pay prevailing wages in safe and healthy workplaces while ensuring workers have a free and fair choice to organize, join a union, and bargain collectively with their employers. So by ensuring that American taxpayer dollars benefit working families and their communities and not multinational corporations or foreign governments, the plan will require that goods and materials are made in America and shipped on U.S. flag, U.S. crewed vessels. The plan will also ensure that Americans who have endured systemic discrimination and exclusion for generations finally have a fair shot at obtaining good paying jobs and being part of a union. Because that's what we all need right now, to be a part of a union. Joe Biden is a union guy. But what does that mean? You should really consider asking yourself that. And that's it. I think. And yeah, and then the rest is just a bunch of like specifics, and I think they're not really exciting because there's no high-speed rail. There's no exciting like, hey, we're going to make our own Amazon in the US. So we'll have our own shipping robots that do all the shipping for us so that you don't have to ever pay for shipping ever again. That'd be really cool. There are so many things that we can do with infrastructure plans. There are so many brilliant ideas that have been proposed, none of which are in here. Nothing in here is productive. And this is the ask. Keep that in mind. This is the ask. So whenever it's the ask, you negotiate down. That's how Joe Biden works. He negotiates down. He never negotiates up. So if anything, this is just going to be a bill that passes and then we'll be done. And then AOC will celebrate. Ilhan Omar will celebrate, and they'll all talk about how they saved the economy and everything. Everyone's saved. That's the kind of narrative that's being pushed right now. That the American Rescue Plan really rescued us. And now we're all screwed a month later. And we've been screwed for like the last several decades. We need socialism. That's what we need. All right, let me address the live chat, and then I need to save that video real quick so that I can post that on YouTube. How's everyone doing today? How is everyone doing today? I uploaded a shit ton of videos yesterday, and the day before, and the day before. Cool. Nice. I have high hopes for this YouTube channel. Where are my videos? There they are. So that's that. And actually, yeah, we need to, because I need to prep for the next video. I like to watch the videos and everything. I like to read it right before because it reminds me. So let me read the live chats and then we'll take a quick break. All right, so What Up America says, I keep trying to hold out hope for AOC, but her trajectory is not good. And yeah, I wouldn't hold out hope at this point. Like there's no way that she's going to like turn around and come to her senses or anything like that. She's an actor, she's a paid actor. That's all she is. She's a paid actor. Flesk says, there's always adult film. LOL. What Up America says, yeah, I agree with that. She was saying when she campaigned, I'm not seeing her as passionate nowadays. Yeah. And of course they gave What Up America says, complete non-answer. Yeah, that was just all it's like, why did the Biden advisor even go on that show? He just like dodged every single question that reporter asked in that entire interview. Every single one. It's pretty crazy. All right, we'll be right back, and then we'll get to the next story. Hey everyone, good to be back. This is a fun story. It's going to be a Fox News story about the infrastructure bill. Here we go. I'm going to shift the camera just a little bit. There we go. That way my head's not being like cropped off. There we go. Let's get this out of the way. So Fox Business wants to respond to AOC's proposal for $10 trillion over 8 years. Now, let me just say something real quick. AOC's offer for $10 trillion is not serious at all. She's not actually asking for anything because asking doesn't do anything. And AOC still hasn't really figured that out yet, which is kind of stupid because she just keeps doing the same thing, like ask. And then she just, nothing happens. And so her existence is pretty much useless. She just votes in favor of whatever Nancy Pelosi puts in front of her. So she's just Nancy Pelosi's puppet. But, you know, Fox Business wants to kind of, they want you to buy into this narrative that there is a left versus right in Congress, when in reality we live in a one-party fascist state, and the only dialogue that's going on in Congress is who deserves blame. That's what the dialogue is about when it comes to Congress. Who should we blame? And it's all their faults. Every single one of them, including AOC. Well, let's take a look at this video because Fox Business wants to attack Joe Biden's plan from the right, which it's just like, I keep finding myself amazed that people attack Joe Biden from the right. Like I whenever Joe Biden suggests something or he says something new that's like super far right, I think, oh, okay, so that must be the bottom of the barrel, right? Like this is how far it goes, right? No, people just keep finding ways of attacking Joe Biden from the right. And it's just like, you have to really think hard to be able to attack Joe Biden on the right. Now, let me show you how Fox News does it, because it's pretty sad.
10 trillion. You heard that right. Meanwhile, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell already vowing to fight the bill, the current one, every step of the way. Steve Moore, the Biden administration's already talking about a corporate tax hike. Now you've got AOC. She wants more money spent. Where is all this money going to come from?
Where are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? Where's all this money going to come from? How are you going to pay for it? Here we go. Here we go. And then they're just all the economists. Get ready.
The really interesting thing is that when AOC first came on the scene a couple of years ago, we used to kind of laugh at the crazy things that she was saying. And
they would just laugh. They would just laugh at concepts like Medicare for all. We just laugh at them.
And, let's face it, she's not the smartest economist in the world. But what's really frightening, actually, is that her view...
She's not supposed to be an economist. There are economists that... She's supposed to be a politician. There are economists that do the economist part. Like you, apparently. I wouldn't consider him an economist, though. If anything, just like some guy who's paid to... who is this guy? Like, what credentials does he have at this point to continue saying the things he says? He just constantly says, we can't afford it. It's going to cause a collapse. We can't afford it. It's going to cause a collapse. We can't afford it. And then nothing happens. And then he just keeps going on TV and just says, we can't afford it. It's going to collapse.
Face it, she's not the smartest economist in the world. But what's really frightening, actually, is that her viewpoints have really carried the day with the Democrats. So
they haven't really carried the day with the Democrats in Congress. They've carried the way with the people, like the concept of spending at least 10 trillion. By the way, let me just clarify. 10 trillion is not even close. Like 10 trillion over 8 years, that's still just so far away from where we should be heading. We should be advocating for a $10 trillion plan. I wouldn't push. Yeah, actually I would. I would push a $10 trillion plan at least. Spread over 1 year. Spread over just the next year. That's it. That's what I would advocate for. At least. Right? And this is the thing that happens. Joe Biden advocates for a policy that's so fucking far right? Like just crumbs, $250 million or $250 billion a year on infrastructure, as though that's going to bring us to a utopian future and we're going to be able to somehow compete with China. China's spending trillions of dollars right now on infrastructure. They're investing in infrastructure. We're not. Look at how capitalism's doing. China, by the way, not so capitalist over there. How are they doing? Well, they seem to be getting some really good infrastructure. Have you seen Taiwan lately? Have you seen Vietnam? Have you seen Malaysia? These places are just absolutely thriving right now. The happiness rates are all over 90%. And keep in mind, Bernie Sanders wants to keep people like Bernie Sanders, people like AOC, social democrats, all they want to do is they want to keep referencing Europe. Don't reference Asia. Don't reference Asia ever. You'll never hear Bernie Sanders talk about China. You'll never hear Bernie Sanders talk about Vietnam or Taiwan. He'll never talk about those countries because if he does, he's going to have to tell the truth that those countries are incredibly prosperous right now. And why are they incredibly prosperous? Well, the only unifying theme that all of those Asian countries have is socialism. And if you want another example that it's just not just an Asian thing, look at Cuba. How's Cuba doing? Cuba's doing really well right now, actually. All right, let's keep going.
I no longer laugh at these lunatic ideas.
I no longer laugh at these lunatic ideas. Why?
Democrats seem to embrace them. So when she said...
Because Democrats embrace them. So he used to think that all of these ideas that he used to say, he used to go on TV and say, "Oh, that's a crazy idea." And now he's saying, "I used to think that they're radical ideas."
Laugh at these lunatic
I used to
ideas.
laugh.
The Democrats seem to embrace them.
But the Democrats seem to embrace them, so I guess I have to like them too. He just admitted to that. I think he's admitting to that.
I no longer laugh at these lunatic ideas. I mean, the Democrats seem to embrace them. So when she says, $5, $8, $10 trillion, I think we ought to start taking these people seriously. I mean,
why? Why take them seriously now and not 2 years ago? Like, you're essentially, this guy's criticizing himself. And of course, they don't want to show his face because he's probably just like sweating, like, oh my gosh, they're making me. My boss is somehow making me say these things that I don't agree with, and I'm going to have to admit that everything I've said in the past is wrong, and that in fact it's really good to spend money. I have to agree with the Democrats now because that's what my boss told me to do. And so now I need to hide in shame and not show my face.
I mean, look, we started the year with $1 trillion in the pipeline. Remember, that was left over from the Trump COVID bill, and then.
That's left over. The $2 trillion coronavirus rescue plan, it was just left over from what Trump did. He just admitted to that, which is basically saying we just took Trump's bill and just kind of tweaked it a little bit and finished it, and now we're done.
Then we passed a $2 trillion bill, and then Biden announced $2 trillion.
Oh, I think I might have gotten that backwards. I got that backwards.
$2 trillion this week. And then, by the way, the Washington Post reported they're going to come up with a second $2 trillion bill for so-called social infrastructure. So if my math is right, that's $4 trillion, $6 trillion, that's $7 trillion already. So they're not so far from the $10 trillion that AOC is talking about.
So his argument that he's trying to make is that Joe Biden, if you take all of the plans that he's proposed, all the Democrats, all the plans that they've proposed over the last year, it adds up to something like $7 trillion or something like that. So AOC should just calm down. She should just calm down from her. She's not even fighting for it, dude. She's not even fighting for $10 trillion. She's just going on TV saying words. That's the only thing that she's done over the last, well, what's it been now? 6 years? 4 years? I don't, it's been many years now. And AOC still just passes whatever Nancy Pelosi gives to her, whatever Nancy Pelosi says to her, she just says yes. And so she is no different than, say, for example, Joe Manchin. Now, she might vote in certain specific ways and certain times when it's convenient, but I'll remind you that that Kamala Harris ran on Medicare for All at one point. She co-sponsored it. She co-sponsored the bill. She wrote the damn bill. She helped write the damn bill. She co-sponsored it. She went in front of everyone in 2016, I think it was, and advocated for Medicare for All, and now she doesn't. And so why did she do that? Well, at the time, the Republicans had control over the House. And so there's no way you could pass Medicare for All. So all of a sudden, all the Democrats decided, yeah, I like Medicare for All. Cory Booker advocated for Medicare for All. Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders. All these people made speeches. And then all of a sudden, they just all flip. And then they never talk about it again. And I mean, there's an interview that's really cool that I've anyways, I'm gonna skip that. We're gonna go back to the video. Let's keep going.
This is a ruinous financial fiscal policy. It is going to cause massive disruptions in our economy.
You mean like every other bill that's been passed and hasn't? Like every bill that's passed, our economy is still just in this kind of the same position as it's been. Shit. And so these giant multi-trillion dollar packages, they're not even affecting anything. They're not even doing anything. They're small. They're chump change. Why are they chump change? Because look at the GDP of the US. We make trillions of dollars in the US. Debt is only a bad thing if you're spending the money in really stupid ways. Infrastructure is an investment, though. You get to keep that money. It's not like that money disappears. You still get to keep the property that you build. That's an asset. You're an economist. Are you not going to include that asset in the valuation of this bill? Because in my view, I think that a $10 trillion package would build infrastructure that's worth over $10 trillion. which is a net profiting system. Who profits off of that? The US government does. They make like public housing, for example, cheap housing. Then that housing is ours. And so we can just constantly give it for free to people, and we can just keep rinse and repeat.
Not immediately, but there will be a day of reckoning that will cause real hardship. I mean, government doesn't.
There will be a day of reckoning. I don't know when that is. I keep saying that every single year. There's going to be the day of reckoning's coming. This next bill, just like every bill in the past, the days it's coming. The collapse is coming.
Stimulate the economy, it destimulates the economy, and we're going to find that out.
I'm not so sure, though, Steve, that I think that all of this is going to go through. And James, I'll take this to you because, look, especially with the Senate, they're going to have to use reconciliation. You don't have any Republicans on board, James, and they can only do this so many times in the Senate. This is kind of the rules of politics, if you will. So they can't just continue to do bill after bill. They may even have to combine the next relief bill that the
She's not allowed to use the word filibuster, by the way. She's not allowed to use that word in Fox Business. They don't want the audience to know what the filibuster is.
Bill after bill. They may even have to combine the next relief bill that the Biden administration is already talking about with this multi-trillion-dollar bill just to get it passed. It seems to me that that's a tough road to hoe politically.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get to that AOC number, fortunately. But Steve.
Fortunately. We're in the middle of a deadly pandemic and an economic depression. Gee, what did we do last time we were in an economic depression? What was that thing that we did? You know what? It must have been the war. It must have been the war that got us out of the depression, huh? Yeah, that must have been it.
Suggested she's really stretched the debate here to where spending several trillion is now not seen as unusual. And just to emphasize.
Yeah, because the proof of concept, it works. It works. You can spend trillions of dollars and everything's okay. Because we're the richest country in the world. We're the richest country in the world.
This is so destructive. This is essentially an anti-infrastructure bill in the.
What the fuck is this guy saying? He's saying it's an anti-infrastructure bill. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? How do you take infrastructure? What's anti-infrastructure? What does that mean? It's an anti-infrastructure bill. Someone please help me.
When you remember that the private sector owns most of the infrastructure in the U.S., whether you're talking about pipelines, utilities, broadband networks. So what we're doing, and
he makes it so what he's saying is, listen, utilities are private in general, so we should just leave the utilities to the private industry. That's like the underlying argument he's trying to make, and you know why that's stupid. You know why that's a really bad idea. You know why it's really bad for private companies to be giving us water. We don't want private companies to be giving us water. We want just water from water sources to be given to everyone. Water should, because it's a need. Just like housing. Just like food. Just like healthcare. Right? Like you.
By the way, there's been a boom since the Trump reforms in investment in broadband networks, especially wireless broadband, building towers out. So what this does with a higher corporate tax.
There's no boom. We're in the middle of an economic depression. There's no boom. All the Americans right now, they're suffering. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them are suffering. Many are homeless. So, boom is not the... I wouldn't use that word.
Tax rate, and then big government spending tries to replace what businesses are doing with government action.
Sounds like socialism.
Sounds like socialism. It sounds like socialism. No, socialism is when you give the work to the workers. When you tell the private industry that you're public now. That's socialism. When you say those workers that work at that work, they own the company, not the banks. The workers. So if you're a worker at your work, let's say, this is socialism. If you're a worker at your work, let's say, Your CEO, your bosses are making money and they're profiting off of you. And you know this. You know that the only reason you have a job is because you make them money. And the only reason you have a job is because, I mean, that's for them. The only reason you wanted this job is because you needed to survive. That's a really bad model to just keep and not, transform in any way. And we're seeing the consequences of those. And these economists are just pretending as though like what they're saying is even reasonable. And somehow, again, it's Fox Business, so 255 likes, 13 dislikes. So people are looking at this and they're saying, yeah, she makes sense. Listen to her.
What businesses are doing with government action.
Sounds like socialism.
It is going to be more expensive, less efficient. The end result is going to be less infrastructure at enormous cost.
Yeah.
Let me just remind everyone that according to the Wikipedia article for fascism, if you look it up, on the first section of Wikipedia, it says that fascists advocate for mixed economies too. So it's really hard to call this socialism. It's really hard. When you still have a private markets, you don't have socialism. You need to make them public. We want the stuff that we made. That's it. That's all that socialism is. If we make the stuff, then let's give it to us. Not to just a few people. That's like, and yeah, that's where we're at right now. Let's keep going.
Yeah, and you've also got, I mean, look, all Democrats, I mean, I'm sorry, eyes are all Joe Manchin right now. Not all Democrats are on board. They're already coming out with things that they want to carve into this or what they're going to demand to even.
We got to look at Joe Manchin. Why do we have to look at Joe Manchin? Joe Manchin's asking for more. He's asking for $4 trillion, by the way. Why are you okay with Joe Manchin and as like or why are you framing him as the hero, but $2 trillion we can't afford? Why are you contradicting yourself here? This is Fox Business. This is just Fox Business to a T. Every single day. It's the same thing. Let me save this real quick and then we'll get to the next story. Actually, again, I keep forgetting. I need to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Oh, first I forgot. Sorry, real quick. Got some live chats before I leave. What Up America says, did you compose your own break music? No. I took a YouTube YouTube audio library. It took I don't know where I got that song, but at some point, YouTube should just automatically make citations whenever it hears certain music in my description for me. That'd be nice. But yeah, I don't know what the song is exactly, but yeah, I just took it and just copy pasted it over and over again. And yeah, I like it. It's cool. Yeah, let me, okay. Yeah, that was it. All right. We'll be right back.
We don't have democracy in our workplaces. We never did. The commitment to democracy is verbal in this society, limited to that voting activity where we live, but not where we work.
Hashtag forced to vote has made me realize there isn't a left in America, and that's the problem. There even the thing we all agree on, we couldn't agree on when it came time to do it. Half the left said, "Don't be mean," and let's wait for a better time.
We are just deprived of a national conversation about anything to the extent that we have one. It's just about these stupid culture war issues. It's not about what's really happening right now.
We're going to do our next segment here. This one's on Joe Biden. So this is specifically on Joe Biden's speech today. So this is let me show everyone the speech. All right. So Joe Biden spoke about his infrastructure plan and the March jobs report. And this speech should make you feel a little uncomfortable. It has 1.1 thousand dislikes and 187 likes. We'll go through it, and I'm going to explain bit by bit what's wrong with the speech. Let's take a look.
Before I start, I hope you all have a good weekend. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. Well, good morning.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? I'll play it again. Listen carefully. I'm pretty sure he just eats his tooth.
I'm looking forward to it. Well, good morning. This morning we've learned that our economy created 900,000 jobs in March. It means the first 2 months of our administration has seen more new jobs created than the first 2 months in any administration in history. But we still have a long way to go to get our economy back on track after the worst economic and job crisis in nearly a century.
I'm being mean.
But my message to the American people is this: help is here.
Help is here. It's not on the way. It's here. Wow. All our problems are solved? It's here?
Opportunity is coming. And at long
opportunity is coming, but you just said help is here. How can help be here if opportunity is coming? That doesn't make any sense.
Long last, there's hope for so many families. So many families. Credit for this progress belongs not to me, but to the American people. Hard-working women and men who have struggled through this pandemic, never given up, and are determined to get the country back on track, as well as their families. But I think it's also a reflection of two things we're doing here. First, the new economic strategy we've launched, one focused on building from the bottom up and the middle out, and one that puts government on the side of working people.
All right, and now he's about to say that this bill just helps the wealthy. Watch, he just says it.
And that rewards work, not wealth. When we invest in the American people, it's not just those at the top that make our economy grow. They're the ones that make it grow.
Did you just hear that? Oh, I have to fix I'm sorry, everyone. I have to fix my my phone. That's also my camera. I have to fix it because it's acting up. Yep, there we go. There it is. All right, that's much better. Much better. All right, perfect. All right, so I need to remind myself where we were just at. Hold on. Sorry,
not
everyone.
Wealth. When we invest in the American people, it's not just those at the top that make our economy grow. They're the ones that make it grow.
They're the ones that make it grow. It's not just the people at the top that we're helping. They're the ones that make it grow. They're the ones. They're the ones. Interesting.
Ordinary Americans. We saw the economy gain traction in March as the American Rescue Plan moved and got passed, bringing new hope to our country. And we're going to continue to implement that law in the weeks ahead.
We don't have weeks. We're in the middle of an economic depression. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We don't have weeks.
By April 7th, next week, over 130 million households will have gotten their $1,400 per person rescue check.
So like a third of the country got $1,400. That's terrible. That's terrible. That's a terrible plan. So you're not only are you not even giving $2,000 to everyone, but you're also not even giving the check to, you're only giving the check to like a third of the country. Jeez, man.
Funds are on their way to local communities to put educators, healthcare workers, home healthcare aides, police, firefighters, sanitary workers back on the job. They're getting more aid for small businesses. We're also going to hang an open sign again on the door to rehire folks that had to be let go. And in the months ahead, a new child care tax credit will cut taxes and provide help to millions of families with young children.
By not guaranteeing child care as a right. So what they want to do with child care, so child care should be a public utility. And I said this in a different video, but I want to explain this. Childcare is something that everyone needs. If you're a parent, you need childcare. It's a necessity. If you don't have that, then that person's not going to be able to contribute in the workforce. And so then we end up having to pay for benefits, for their benefits, and they don't contribute work, which is bad for everyone. It's incredibly counterproductive. And so the only solution to the childcare crisis that we have right now is to make childcare a public utility and guarantee it as a right for all parents. That's what we should be doing. That's because the thing is, when we say that we're putting money in infrastructure into childcare, then what that really means is we're putting that money into childcare CEOs of daycare centers, basically. And they get the money, and then it trickles down. That's what's really going on here. So who gets the money? Do the workers get the money, or do the CEOs of these private companies? Well, that's why they want to make it a tax credit. That's why they want you to spend money in the private market. Because if you spend money in the private market, then you can get price gouged. You can get price gouged because it's a necessity. You need it, and so we're going to charge you basically as much as we possibly can until you basically have nothing. That's why childcare is expensive. In the US, it could be free. And on top of that, you can pay the workers a really good wage. Childcare workers, you can pay them a good wage. You can democratically decide childcare workers are going to make $25 an hour, $30 an hour, $50 an hour, whatever it is, right? The public gets to decide because the child care facilities would then be in our control. Now, do we need to build infrastructure child care facilities? No, we just convert private companies into public companies. That's what you do. You convert. You say those buildings, all those buildings designated for child care, sorry, but you can't. We're gonna take the childcare facilities and they're gonna be ours now, so that we can guarantee it as a right now. We don't have to wait to build more public facilities or anything like that. So I want to remind everyone that when it comes to socialist policies, there are a lot of ways of addressing the problems that we have without even doing a lot of the solutions that sound good. So I'll give you one example: public housing. Technically, and hear me out for a moment, I am 100% in favor of public housing. I think we need to invest as much as we can in public housing. I think housing should be a right, and I think that there should be no private market in the housing market. Okay, just let me clarify that, okay? That said, though, in the US, there are 10 million empty housing units right now. They're empty. 10 million, which can house a total of like 27 million Americans. And there are only 500,000 homeless people in the US. That was before the pandemic, though, so that number is probably much higher. But the point that I'm trying to make is, in theory, you don't have to make more houses. You just have to connect the people who are homeless into the empty housing units that exist. And how can you do that? Well, for example, you can charge a penalty for owning an empty house. You have to pay a huge tax if you want to have an empty house. That's, I mean, and eventually there, you know, the competition gets so bad that eventually they default and the government takes over the housing market. It's such an easy plan. It would immediately give everyone housing. You don't need to build more buildings in theory. We can just fill the houses. There are fucking mansions that are empty right now. Why do we need to build public infrastructure when we can just fill the homes? That said, we should build public infrastructure. We should invest as much as we can. Why? Because then what happens is, once you have more and more empty housing units, it becomes more common to own an empty home. And if you tax people with empty homes, they're going to really not want to own their house. They're really not going to want to own their house. And so they're going to sell it. And then eventually the prices of homes go down because of public housing, because of all the empty housing units and the requirement to fill your home or suffer a large property tax. Then you fill the homes. And all the homes that are empty, you are like, all of a sudden the landlords are like, oh shit, I need to fill this home. Like I can't pay this fucking penalty, so I might as well lower my rent. Do you see what's going on there? You shouldn't be able to own empty houses. That should not be allowed. If at anything, we should at least, the bare minimum, put a disincentive on that. I think we can all agree that if we put a giant disincentive on owning empty housing units, then people are going to have to lower their prices. They're going to have to, eventually to zero. And then eventually the housing industry is completely gone. Everyone who invested in the real estate market, all of a sudden your property is worth nothing because everyone has to continuously lower their prices to fill their empty housing units. And competition. And it actually works. And immediately you get housing as a right. So that's another way of addressing the housing crisis. There are multiple solutions, some of which are good, but some of which are also kind of ignored. Like, I think there are plenty of good ways of addressing housing, and I honestly do think that a lot of good strategies are just completely ignored within the political discourse. Anyways, let's get back to the video.
Nothing. I know you're tired of hearing me say this, but I mean, there's nothing the American people cannot do if we give them a chance.
Did you hear that cute little platitude? That sounds like Pete Buttigieg. That you just said nothing.
And the American Rescue Plan does precisely that for hard-working middle-class folks at long last.
It does what? The rescue plan does what?
Cannot do nothing. I know you're tired of hearing me say this, but I mean, there's nothing the American people cannot do if we give them a chance. And the American Rescue Plan does precisely that.
Oh, the American Rescue Plan gives American a chance. That's not the same thing as rescuing. Giving someone a chance. If you were to, like, let's say you were dying on the street, right? And you call 911 and you say, I need an ambulance. Someone send an ambulance real quick. And they say, yeah, hold on, let me roll this dice real quick and see if I get a 6. Looks like the chance wasn't yours. We're not going to give you a chance. So, sorry. Good luck with your fucking blood. Right? Like, that's what this is. No, you should be addressing every single individual. Every single one, giving them what they need from each their ability to each their need.
For hard-working middle-class folks at long last. Secondly,
and everyone's still in a crisis, economic crisis right now. There's still a rent moratorium. So if there's a rent moratorium, why is there a rent moratorium? Oh, it's because we're in the middle of an economic crisis. So you can't say that you rescued or did anything significant if you're still in the middle of a rent moratorium.
The report also reflects the progress we've made on my other key priority, getting the American people vaccinated.
I want to skip this because it's really boring. I do want to mention something. I saw, and unfortunately Jen Psaki said today, that a reporter asked Jen Psaki if Biden is considering making vaccines intellectual public property. Because it obviously should be. Obviously. So all the other countries, developed countries, they've said yes. Yeah, we need to make that a public good so that other businesses can make safe, we can give them instructions on how to develop safe vaccine production facilities, and we can improve the amount of vaccines that we're manufacturing. We can speed the process up. That's what the goal is. And unfortunately, Jen Psaki said, "Oh, I remember you asked me this the other day. I still don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I support it."
Also, to make this clear and direct statement to the American people, the progress we've worked so hard to achieve can be reversed. On the economic front, the benefits and the impact of the American Rescue Plan are temporary by design. It is a rescue plan.
If it's you can't rescue someone temporarily. That's not called rescuing. So let me give you an example. This is just, again, let's say you're dying on the street. You call 911. They send you an ambulance. And then what do?
Are temporary by design.
Temporary. So let's say the ambulance says, okay, let's take you to the hospital. But we're only going to treat you for like an hour, and then we're going to drive you back here, and then we're going to put you in the exact same position that you were at. So that was the design.
The benefits and the impact of the American Rescue Plan are temporary by design.
Why don't you do a permanent fix? Why don't you stop trying to do temporary relief? Why don't we do permanent relief?
It is a rescue plan.
A permanent plan would be a rescue plan. A permanent plan would be a rescue plan.
But as we get the economy back on its feet, we need to do the hard work of building back better for good, for not just for a while, but for good.
Did you see how he did that with his eyes? Not just for a while, but for good. Well, it sounds like you only want to do temporary things, not things for good. So here we go.
For good, for not just for a while, but for good. Not just a short term, but for good. That's why I proposed the American Jobs Plan on Wednesday in Pittsburgh. It's an 8-year program that invites,
8 years.
Let me put it another way.
He forgot. It's like 8 years, and let me put it another way. Who talks like this?
I've heard from everybody all across the country about the need for infrastructure. How many times have we heard this is Infrastructure Week?
This is Infrastructure Week. I have never heard anyone ever come up to me and say, "Did you know that this is Infrastructure Week?" See, this is the problem with both Republicans and Democrats. They want to frame the presidency as though there are like segments that this week you do infrastructure, this week. The reason they like to separate things is because if you separate it, then that's incrementalism. Then you can push all of your solutions further, some of your solutions, a lot of them further back. Incrementalism. So that's, 8 years. 8 years.
The last 4 years. About every second week was Infrastructure Week, but no infrastructure was built.
Yeah, that's a problem, Joe Biden. You didn't do anything in the second week. Now you're doing infrastructure, and you're asking for $250 billion every year to address all of your problems, every single one of them. And even though you're just giving the money to CEOs, it's trickle-down economics.
It's an 8-year program that invests in our roads, our bridges, broadband, airports, ports.
Private.
Fixing our water systems.
Private.
It's going to repair our VA hospitals across the country. Many of them are more than 50 years old and are in real need of help.
That's not going to be enough. You're asking for $250 billion to do all of these things? That's not enough.
Invest in research and development to outcompete China and the rest of the world.
By the way, I want to clarify, $10 trillion is also not enough. Because AOC said $10 trillion over 8 years. Or I think she said 10. I don't know. But anyways, it's basically $1 trillion a year in infrastructure, which is not enough. We should be spending at least $5 trillion per year.
Independent analysis shows that if we pass this plan, the economy will create 19 million jobs.
Over 8 years. Let's do the math. Let me do the math real quick. How many, what was it, 19 million?
This plan, the economy will create 19 million jobs. Good jobs, blue-collar jobs.
So that's like 2 million jobs a year. That's what he's advocating for, 2 million jobs a year. And that's assuming that every single job lasts a whole year, which is not, I mean, people who work for public jobs, the public market, how do I call it? What is it? The public market is a shit show in the US. It's an absolute disaster. Like the Medicare, it's the most popular program, but it's also an incredibly unpopular program because it's not nearly enough. I think I made my point. I'm not sure, but anyways, let's keep going.
Jobs that pay well.
Pay the minimum wage, which I didn't increase, which was, I didn't increase it so that I can pay for cheap labor. So Joe Biden's going to make a bunch of jobs that pay $7.25 an hour. Isn't that great? Isn't that great? Maybe that's why he didn't want to pass a $15 minimum wage. He wants to do the infrastructure bill first, get the cheap labor, and then maybe we can increase, which he doesn't even care about any of this.
That's long-term jobs for pipe fitters, healthcare workers, those who work in the steel factories and the cutting-edge labs as well.
Then we're funding the CEOs. The CEOs. We're not funding the actual workers. We're funding the CEOs.
Well, the new report out this week shows that nearly 90% of the infrastructure jobs created in the American Jobs Plan can be filled by people who don't have a college degree. 75% of those good-paying jobs don't need an associate's degree.
So how about so here's the problem I don't like with this framing. Joe Biden is making it very clear, very, very, very clear that the more educated you are, the more hireable you are. And if that's true, then why not just make education free? Why not make education free? You just admitted that having more education makes you more. The reason why people are against college is because they make arguments like, the people who are against college, they make arguments like degrees don't really get you jobs. Degrees are worthless. Liberal arts are worthless and everything, right? And then they make these arguments. But Joe Biden actually thinks that education's a good thing and he doesn't want to fund it, even though it's a public good, or at least it should be.
It's a blue-collar blueprint for increasing the opportunity for people.
For $7.25 an hour.
Those who've helped build the country and have been ignored or neglected for much too long by our government.
So now we can only pay you like $15,000 a year. Hope you can live.
It's a once-in-a-generation investment in our economic future, a chance to win the future, paid for by asking big corporations, many of which do not pay any taxes at all, just to begin to pay their fair share. And it won't raise a penny tax on a family making less than $400,000 a year.
So he's not reversing Trump's tax cuts, by the way. He's not reversing them. He decided not to. Because Trump cut the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%, I believe. And now Biden is increasing it not to 35%, but to 28%. We're going backwards. But that said, I mean, we need to rethink tax in general. The tax policy in the U.S. is absolute garbage. It makes no sense. No one can understand it. No, like, you can, for example, make a bunch of money on the stock market and then the next year lose it, but still have to pay taxes on the. Like, there's tons of. You can pay. You could be required to pay taxes if you're poor, which doesn't make any sense. You shouldn't be trying to ruin people's lives even more. That doesn't make any sense. You shouldn't be taxed if you have less than a certain amount of wealth. You should just not be taxed. Ever. If you don't have a certain amount of wealth, you just don't pay taxes. Because you don't make enough to justify the programs that can be just easily funded by the top 1%. So it's like we don't need you anymore. That's the concept of, that should be the concept of income tax. That for all of those brackets before, below making a couple $100,000, we should not be taxing those individuals. And on top of that, we shouldn't be taxing income. We should be taxing wealth. Income should not be disincentivized. Owning excessive wealth should be disincentivized. So that's unfortunate. I'll be right back. My cat just, hold on. All right, we're back. All right, let's keep going.
No federal tax. No addition. When Congress comes back after this Easter break, I'm going to begin meeting with Democrats, Republicans about this plan. I've spoken to Republicans on the phone. I'm going to be looking forward to meeting with them. They all have...
Why do you need to meet with Republicans? They have no power. They have no say. You don't need them. You're doing reconciliation anyways. If you're doing reconciliation, why work with Republicans if they literally never voted for a single one of your bills? Not one. Not from Obama, not from Joe Biden. Not from Donald Trump. Whenever the Democrats would propose a bill, the Republicans would unanimously vote against it. So why compromise with Republicans if they have no power and they're not going to vote anyways in favor of you? Why negotiate down from a terribly low infrastructure cost, the infrastructure bill, like a terrible infrastructure bill?
Have their ideas about what it will take, what they like and what they don't like. That's a good thing. That's the American way. Debate is welcome. Compromise is inevitable.
It's inevitable. Why? Again, I just explained. You have control of the House. You have control of the Senate. You have control of the executive branch. Why is compromise inevitable?
Changes in my plan are certain.
Changes in his plan. He might be addressing at this point the other Democrats that are advocating for more. Joe Manchin's advocating for more. He's advocating for $4 trillion. When Joe Manchin is criticizing Joe Biden for not asking enough, you should probably understand that whatever is being asked is definitely not nearly close to what we should be spending. And I don't mean that by a little bit. I mean, we're talking orders of magnitude. Orders of magnitude. Let's keep going.
But inaction is not an option. The American people have been promised action and infrastructure for decades. They've been promised that after our leaders would take our country and make it more competitive for decades. I've made my plan to address this long overdue need, and it's clear. Polls already show strong support for infrastructure investment.
Yeah, we should invest in infrastructure. So if it's popular, then invest more. If it's a good idea, then keep doing it. If it's good, let's do it.
And the American people, whether they're Democrats, Republicans, or Independents, Congress should debate my plan, change it, and offer alternatives if they think that's what they have to do.
That's not how you lead a country, Joe Biden. You don't just say, here's my bill, do whatever you want with it, I don't really care. That's not what you do. That's not how you fight for Americans. That's not how you address your voters.
But Congress should act. Likewise, on the virus.
They should act, but over the next couple of months or weeks or so. Take your time. It's not like people are dying right now as we speak.
Our program there too can be undone. As fast as we're moving, more adults remain to be vaccinated in April, May, and June than have already been vaccinated in February and March. We are not even halfway done yet. Too many Americans are acting as if this fight is over.
We're not even halfway done that yet. That's a bad thing, okay? That's a problem. And you were just asked today, your press secretary was just asked today, whether or not you would agree with converting vaccines into intellectual public property, so that everyone has the design of the how to create a vaccine with complete detailed public description that anyone can take part in. So that would be really cool. That would help increase the amount of vaccines that are being manufactured, because then you can just employ all of the Americans to start making vaccines. You could say, oh, you're unemployed right now? You're hired. We want you to just make vaccines right now. We need to be making all vaccines, all of us together. We need to solve this crisis right now. Joe Biden can do this right now. He can also mandate masks. None of these things are things that he's considering, though.
It is not. I've told people that if my administration did the hard work of getting shots to all Americans in the next few months, and if the American people continue to do their part, mask up, practice social distancing.
Continue to do their part. Mask up. Why don't you ask nicer, Joe? Maybe they'll listen to you if you just ask a little bit nicer. Maybe just keep asking. Asking doesn't do anything, and Joe Biden knows this. He doesn't want to mandate masks because he doesn't believe in the science. Because he doesn't believe in the science.
We could have a more normal July 4th. But this is still April, not July. We aren't there yet. And
it's like there's no pressure anywhere. Who's pressuring who? Is anyone pressuring anyone? Do you know who's pressuring anyone? Is anyone being pressured? No. Why? Well, because these giant pharma companies, Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, all of these companies, they want to have all of the profits. All of them. They don't want public vaccines, because if you make the vaccines public, then that'll take from their profits. And they donate to Joe Biden, and so, yeah, that's why Joe Biden's not going to make vaccines public intellectual property. And that's really sucks, because a lot of people are going to die as a direct result of not signing on to that. Everyone else is on board.
Cases are going up again. The virus is spreading more rapidly in many places.
So let's do what the World Trade Organization is asking every country to do, and make the vaccine public intellectual property, so that we can all manufacture drugs, or we can all manufacture vaccines. So that we can all manufacture vaccines. So that we can solve this problem like in a couple days. Because we would hire the whole world would just get their shit together, and then all these vaccines would come out of all of these public facilities that are making vaccines, which we can do right now. But we're just going to ignore the World Trade Organization. The U.S. is going to ignore the World Trade Organization. We're the only country that's ignoring the World Trade Organization. China's on board. Europe's on board. Everyone's on board. U.S. They like giving profits to Johnson & Johnson. They like giving profits to Pfizer. They like giving profits to Moderna. They don't really like the concept of going against their donors. And so because of that, yeah, we got to just let only 3 companies manufacture vaccines, and they decide how many jobs exist to fill these orders. They decide that information. And so where's the pressure? It doesn't exist. There's no pressure. It's a monopoly. What kind of pressure do you think it could exist in such an oligarchy? You only have a couple companies. You think you have negotiating power over vaccines in a private healthcare industry? You think you can pressure? You can't do anything. Joe Biden can't even negotiate drug prices. He still hasn't fixed that. We're so far behind, and and the way we're addressing this crisis, I mean, I really don't know how much longer this country is gonna. Yeah, we're going into a really dark place right now. Let's keep going.
Deaths are going up in some states. So I ask, I plead with you.
Please, get on my knees. Please wear a mask. Please.
Don't give back the progress.
I have the ability to tell you to wear a mask. I have that ability. I ran on that ability. I ran on mandating masks. But I broke that promise.
We've all fought so hard to achieve. We need to finish this job. We need every American to buckle down and keep their guard up in this home stretch. Wear your mask. Keep
Please.
safe distance from one another.
Please.
Wash your hands.
Please.
Get vaccinated when it's your turn.
Please.
That's how we're going to beat the virus. Cast off the weight of the pandemic that's holding our economy back.
Actually, a really good way of fighting this pandemic would be to release the vaccine as public intellectual property.
Well, the earliest signs from this job report, this announcing today, are promising, and the American Rescue Plan is starting to make a real difference.
It's starting to make a real difference. Do you have data on that? No.
This report also reminds us how deep a hole we started in. After a year of devastation,
how deep we started in. Joe Biden, it's getting deeper. It's not being filled. I don't think you understand that. You're digging the hole too.
There are still 8.4 million fewer jobs today than there were last March. 8.4 million. We created 900,000 again, but 8.4 million.
What did he just say?
Fewer jobs are still 8.4 million fewer jobs today than there were last March.
Holy shit. So capitalism is failing before your very eyes. All of the jobs are going away. Eventually, we're just not going to have jobs. Eventually, no one's going to be able to create a business because everything's automated. Because capitalism sucks. Because capitalism just constantly makes income inequality worse and worse and worse and worse over time. We are in a very tough place right now. And like I said, I really have really deep concerns about the near future of this country.
8.4 million. We created 900,000 again, but 8.4 million jobs fewer today than last March.
That's really bad.
So
that means your American Rescue Plan didn't rescue shit. It made it worse.
Too many Americans have been unemployed for longer than 6 months. Too many women have been forced out of the workforce. Unemployment among people of color remains far too high. Yes, we've made progress by starting to build an economy from the bottom up and the middle out. And yes, the American Rescue Plan is laying the foundation for that economy.
But it's not enough. It's not enough. It didn't solve your problem. It didn't fill the hole that you were just talking about. So just do the thing again and again and again until you fill the hole. Just do the thing that works over and over and over again until you fill the hole. That's all we need to do. That's a great idea.
But we still need the American Jobs Plan to build on that foundation, to build this country back better.
By making only 2 million jobs per year. And it's probably not even that. That's a really generous estimate.
The bottom line is this. Today's report is good news. Today's report shows that the country can what it can do.
It's good news that we lost 8 million jobs. That's good news. That's good. I think that's bad. That's 8 million more people in 1 month. 8 million more people that just lost their health insurance. Does anyone have health insurance? Does anyone out there have private health insurance? I mean, it's so fucking expensive. I'm asking people who don't have who don't have access to specifically, jobs, employment jobs. So people who are not employed right now, how do you get your health care? It's just so fucking expensive though. Right? And it's like he's trying to take credit for the system that sucks today, and that's why he gets so many dislikes.
We act together to fight a virus, to give working people the help they need. But we still have a long way to go. But
if we have a long way to go, then do the thing that worked again right now. Don't wait, just do it again until the problem's solved.
I know that we're going to get there, and we're going to get there together.
When?
May God bless you all, and may...
I'm not going to tell you that part.
Happy Easter and a Holy Easter. Thank you.
And he's not going to address the press. He's only done that once. Wait.
I'm giving credit to the American people. Raising taxes, the study show, will not slow the economy at all. Asking corporate America just to pay their fair share will not slow the economy at all. It will make the economy function better and will create more energy.
By the way, it's probably not a good idea. Don't do this, okay? Don't take your mask off to talk and then put your mask back on when you're done talking.
It will make the economy function better and will create more energy.
And now put the mask on. What is he doing with the mask? Wait, hold on. I want to hear this question. This sounds good.
If the Republicans argue that we don't need infrastructure, it need not. They've been talking about the need for it for years now. If the Republicans decide that we need it, but they're not going to pay for it, it's just going to increase the deficit. If the Republicans say the next phase of my plan, we don't need to invest in VA hospitals and keep the sacred obligation we made to so many Americans. If the Republicans say the 400,000 homes and schools and daycare centers that have lead pipes delivering water to their doors, if they say we shouldn't be doing that, what do you think would happen if they found out all the lead pipes were up in the Capitol every time they turned on the water fountain? So I think we're going to have I think the Republicans voters are going to have a lot to say about whether we get a lot of stuff.
Hold on, I'm sorry, I can't hear him. It's really hard.
Voters.
Voters.
Have a lot to say about whether we get a lot of stuff. You're going to have a lot to say about whether we get a lot of stuff.
And you're not allowed to say what... Fuck, it's really hard. Sorry.
Republicans, voters. You're going to have a lot to say about whether we get a lot of stuff.
Whether... dang it. I really wanted to know what he said there. But, all right, well, that's Joe Biden. He basically just said, hey, we have a lot of problems right now. The U.S. is in a really bad place, but I passed a rescue plan, so just wait to be rescued. You'll get rescued, don't worry. And then also this infrastructure plan is an infrastructure plan, and I want to negotiate with Republicans, even though the reporter just said that Republicans refuse to compromise. Yeah, this guy needs to be removed from office. We can't just wait till 2024 to remove this guy from office. We need to remove him now, and we need to remove all the Democrats now. This is unacceptable. All right, everyone, let me save that real quick, and I'm gonna have to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. It'll be just probably 3 to 5 minutes. back. That was fast. Whew. Quick break. All right. So this next one, this is Jen Psaki. So a reporter asked Jen Psaki a really good question involving the World Trade Organization. And, let me start over. Sorry, everyone. I need to start this over because I need to say something else. So a reporter asked Jen Psaki a really good question about how Biden would respond to the World Trade Organization's request to make vaccines public intellectual property so that anyone can manufacture the drug, so that we don't have to just rely on an oligarchy to produce these vaccines, that we can all produce vaccines and we can stop the spread once and for all. We don't have to just wait for these companies that make money off of giving vaccines and making vaccines. They make money off of this pandemic. They make a profit off of this pandemic. And so the concept of making vaccines public intellectual property should be a pretty obvious, yeah, that sounds good. Yes, I agree with that. Anyone who disagrees with that is just like, yeah, I don't like the concept. Like, we have a vaccine. Let's start saving people's lives. Who cares about the profits? If the CEO wants a mansion, give him a couple mansions and be done with it, okay? Just like we really need this vaccine to be public. So listen to this really good question from this reporter. Take a look.
My last question is from Lalitja, our colleague from the Press Trust of India. Can you tell more about the possibility, because India and South Africa have made a formal request of the WTO about lifting intellectual property protections for COVID vaccine and treatment. Is the U.S. ready to consider this?
I know we've been asked about this before, but I don't have any update on it. Sure, go ahead.
That's it. So here's what really sucks about that. That moment is probably going to be the moment that will be referenced in history as the moment the U.S. decided not to turn their vaccine into a public intellectual property. This is the moment that a lot of people were chosen to die. A lot of people are going to die as a result of us not deciding to agree with India and South Africa that this vaccine should be public so that other countries can produce this vaccine. We can't just rely on 3 companies to produce the world's vaccines. That's stupid. And on top of that, they profit off of this. So they profit off of the spread happening. They like it when the virus spreads, because then that increases the necessity to get everyone vaccinated. Everyone vaccinated. So they profit off of this. They have a fiduciary responsibility to maximize profits. And so they price gouge governments. And they only produce a limited number of supply because they only hire a certain number of workers, and it's very limited. And they don't want to invest in more infrastructure and everything because they have no incentive to speed up. They only have an incentive to build exactly the number of vaccines that they need to produce. So once when everyone's vaccinated, by the way, then everyone's vaccinated. And so of course, these vaccines companies, they don't want to create a bunch of manufacturing sites. They don't want to create a bunch of different manufacturing sites where everyone's making vaccines, because if they do that, then that's a waste of resources for the company, because then everyone's going to quickly get vaccinated and then the profits are gone. And then that's it. And so they invested in all of that infrastructure to solve the problem immediately, when instead the private companies could, to maximize profits, what they could do is only build enough infrastructure to solve the problem. So just the bare minimum to solve the problem. And they'll solve it over the next couple of years. And only 3 companies get access to this vaccine. Well, only 3 companies have vaccines or something like that. It's really small, but it's unacceptable. This is the moment, I'll play it again. This is the moment that the U.S. decides they don't They don't want to make the vaccine public.
People of Canada, but are.
My last question is
Here it is.
from Lalitja, our colleague from the Press Trust of India. Can you tell more about the possibility, because India and South Africa have made a formal request of the WTO about lifting intellectual property protections for COVID vaccine and treatment?
Vaccines shouldn't have patents. Healthcare products should not have patents. That's really stupid. That's really dumb. Researchers in universities research how to construct the biotech that you see, and then private companies take that biotech and maximize profits. And they screw with the healthcare industry and price gouge everyone. When instead we can just take the product that public money was used to create, researchers at public universities, we can take those products and make it public property. The vaccine, all of the medicine, everything. That way anyone can make the drug, and that'll lower the cost of drugs everywhere. That would just completely destroy the pharmacy industry. So that's how we could solve it. But of course, that's why Biden said, that's why Jen Psaki responds this way.
Is the U.S. ready to consider this?
I know we've been asked about this before, but I don't have any update on it.
We've been asked this before, but I still don't have an update on it. You don't have an update on what is probably the most important question in the world right now. You still haven't figured that out, because if you haven't figured that out, you should probably figure that out as soon as fucking possible, because we really need to produce vaccines. It's really stupid to say, should we make vaccines public? I don't know. Let me get back to you. Let me just get back to you. No, don't get back to us. You need to fucking say the answer, and the answer better be yes. Because if it's not, then we need to remove these people from office because they're murdering people. If you don't make the vaccine public, you are responsible for murdering people. If you don't advocate for making vaccines public intellectual property, you are advocating for killing people. Vaccines should not be public. They should not be private property. They should be public so that everyone can make it. Now, if you want to make an incentive, like I know the arguments that conservatives make all the time is, well, then then researchers aren't going to be incentivized to make good drugs for us, which is wrong because all the drugs that are made today are made by public taxpayer dollars anyways. But even putting that aside, yeah, that's all we just make public researchers do the research, not private researchers. We do public R&D, but what Joe Biden's infrastructure plan advocates for, unfortunately, is private R&D, private researchers. It's really unfortunate, everyone. I really hate talking about this because, like, I know there's not going to be a lot of people that watch this video specifically, the video that I put up on YouTube, not the live stream, but the actual video. When I post it up, it's probably not going to get a lot of views until people start realizing that the privatization of vaccines was the thing that killed hundreds of thousands of Americans. That's the thing. The fact that these vaccine companies can decide how much manufacturing plants that they need to build, because they only need to make just enough for 2 doses for every person in the world. So they don't have an urgency to make as many manufacturing facilities to produce as many vaccines as possible. They don't have that sense of urgency. They just need just enough to make just enough vaccines. And they can go as slow as they want too, because it's not like they have competition. They really don't. There's not a lot of competition out there. Oligarchies, that's not a competition. So that's really unfortunate. It's really, really unfortunate that the Biden administration will not respond to this. We really need to make the vaccine public intellectual property. I mean, that would just absolutely transition us in. Like, if you want to get everyone a vaccine tomorrow, that's how you do it. If you want everyone to get all of their vaccines right away, you make vaccines a public That's all you need to do. You just make it public intellectual property. And then boom, all of the generic drug manufacturers, all of a sudden, they can all make vaccines. And all of a sudden, you have shit tons of vaccines at really low costs. And the cost that the government would be paying is at cost price. Because when you make vaccines in public intellectual property, that's what causes the prices to go down. That's what causes pharmacy prices to go down. Is when you get rid of the intellectual property part. When you say you're not allowed to be the sole owner of all of the medicine that you make. You can't be the sole owner of the instruction manual behind how to manufacture your drug, and you can't decide that other manufacturing facilities can't make your drug. That's disgusting. That's gross. But that's the healthcare industry that we exist in right now, and it's really unfortunate. All right, let me see if there's we got a live chat. Foof says, hooty hoo. Hello, hooty hoo. Let me see if there are more stories for you. Oh, there is another story here. Yeah, and I want to do it too. We have a PragerU video to end on, everyone. It's going to be a fun PragerU video. These are always fun. Let me save that, and then we're going to just jump right into it. Because I can. We don't need a break. No breaks for me.
You have a system.
Here we go.
One of them is my book of essays. And
I don't want to show you an ad from Dennis Prager, but I do want to show you this. So Dennis Prager wants to defend the death penalty in 2021, which is really bizarre. Like, this is really bizarre to be like defending, especially like. I'm going to restart this. I don't want to start by saying that. So Dennis Prager wants to convince you that the death penalty is totally cool. It's totally fine, and we should be totally fine with it, and that we should be just giving death penalties to criminals. So here his argument, and then we'll talk about the flaw in all of his logic and everything he says.
But I will just say a few things about the most common ones. The idea that it is revenge. All punishment is revenge.
Punishment is bad. I don't agree. As a utilitarian, punishment is bad. It doesn't do anything, and there's no research to suggest that punishment does anything. The only thing it does is it causes harm on the person that you're punishing. And so their life sucks more. And that's it. That's a punishment. Punishments are ineffective. Like, as a utilitarian in the long run, I don't agree with the concept of prisons. I don't agree with the concept of police. When you live in a world with an abundance of resources, which the U.S. is getting close to, we're going to have an abundance of resources. We should start we should start giving people their needs. As Karl Marx said long ago, from each their ability, to each their needs. So anyways, yeah, punishments are bad, and Dennis Prager wants to explain why death penalty is good.
The idea that it is revenge. All punishment is revenge.
So therefore, revenge is okay.
Of course it is. If you lock a person away for life, which is what the abolitionists want, why isn't that revenge? You'll say, well, it's to keep people safe. Come on, you commit a murder at 22 and you're in prison at 70? You're protecting society? Give me a break. The guy's not going to murder again at 70. Everybody knows that, including me. So of course it's revenge. All punishment has an element of revenge.
That's why it's bad. That's why punishment is bad. Like, Dennis Prager is advocating for, like, he's on the side of punishments. Like, he's explaining why punishments are really negative. And then he's and I like them.
The issue is not whether it's revenge. The issue is whether it is just revenge. Just revenge has a word for it. It's called punishment.
And punishment is a bad thing, and all revenge is bad. Good revenge, bad revenge, it's all bad. It's unnecessary. It doesn't do anything, and there's no studies to suggest that it does.
Unjust revenge is where if you step on my toe and then I stab you, that's revenge. That's unjust revenge. Okay,
But what is just revenge is stabbing the person who stabs you. That's just revenge for Dennis Prager.
Where the reaction is excessive, but
it's not excessive to stab the guy that stabs Dennis Prager. That's not excessive because that's giving him the death penalty. And Dennis Prager thinks, well, a life for a life, so kill him. Yeah, stab him to death. Just keep stabbing the guy that's what Dennis Prager wants. Just if Dennis Prager gets stabbed, then it's totally cool to stab the guy that stabbed me as many times as you want. Just kill him. Give him the death penalty.
This is not excessive.
But it's not excessive.
Why, if I take your life deliberately, like the two monsters who took the family of the doctor's lives, the wife and two daughters, why is that? Why is it just that they be allowed to keep their lives?
Why is it just that you should be able to keep your life? Let's think about this. I think this was actually addressed in the Declaration of Independence. Something about inalienable rights. What was that first one? Can someone in the chat remind me what the inalienable rights were? There were 3, I think. The first one, what's the first one again? Can someone remind me in the live chat? What's the first one? Oh yeah, life. So what did Dennis Prager just say?
Why is it just that they be allowed to keep their lives?
Because it's an inalienable right. Because you can't take that away from you. You can't, that's the whole point of it being inalienable.
You take my life, but nobody takes your life?
Yes. Yes. It's really sad, but yes. There's a lot more that needs to be involved, but yes.
I mean, we don't even have that view about bicycles. If you steal a bicycle, why should you be allowed to keep your bicycle?
Because it's my bike. So if I steal your bicycle, what should happen is I should return your bicycle. I should pay exactly the amount of money that was caused by inconvenience, just that much. And then I should probably get educated about how to treat people with like respect. Like I should probably maybe go to class, anger management or something. I don't know. Like there's so many different ideas that you can do. But yeah, no, you shouldn't have the government strip the bike away from me and give my bike to you, Dennis Prager. That's not a really good way of solving that problem. That's really so what does that extend to? That means that if you steal anything from me, then I get to take what it is from yours. So for example, if a thief steals a car, then that gives me what Dennis Prager is advocating for is the right to be able to take their car. That's what Dennis Prager is advocating for. He's advocating for eye for an eye. That's what he's advocating for. Jeez, Dennis, that's really barbaric. Actually, I don't know if the barbarians were even that cruel.
Is this something unjust? I will never, let's say I never have a bicycle again and you have a bicycle the rest of your life. Is that fair?
But that's not the same thing. Bicycles and human life are not the same thing. This sounds like an apples and oranges. Maybe you can make a better analogy, Dennis Prager. Maybe not use bikes as a replacement for human beings because that doesn't...
No, of course not. So substitute the word life for bicycle.
I can't do that, Dennis. I can't because they're not the same thing. You can't just say, oh, hey, I put a noun there and it works. So now I get to replace that noun with any other noun and it's still true. No, that's not how logic works, Dennis Prager. That's really bad logic.
It's just not fair. It's on the fairness issue alone, isn't it obvious?
Fairness, okay, fairness is something that PragerU is really not good at talking about. Fairness. What is fair is utilitarian. Utilitarianism is fair. Maximizing everyone's happiness, including Dennis Prager. That's fair. I think that's the most fair that we can all be, is to maximize everyone's happiness.
I don't deserve to keep my life if I deliberately take yours.
Actually, yes, you do, because that's what the Declaration of Independence, the thing that you like slobber all over every single day, the thing that you sleep with, the thing that you that thing talks about inalienable rights. And one of those inalienable rights, Dennis Prager, is life. So no, just because I take your life doesn't mean you get to take mine. That's not what the Declaration of Independence says.
It's elementary.
It's not elementary. It's in the Declaration. The other thing is elementary. You're saying the not elementary thing. You're disagreeing with your Declaration of Independence. You're not even disagreeing.
State murder? William Buckley had a great answer to state murder. He said, well, imprisonment then is state kidnapping.
Yes. Correct, Dennis Prager. You just figured it out. Congratulations. Everyone, Dennis Prager correctly identified prison. Hear it again.
Buckley had a great answer to state murder. He said, well, imprisonment then is state kidnapping.
What else is it? I mean, like, here's the thing. Someone's got to kill the guy. Like, if you're going to do the death penalty, someone has to do the thing, right? And so if it's not an actual person, if you're not going to blame the murderer, because you're murdering the guy, he's dying, so that means you're killing him. And so who's killing him? Well, it's either the person who delivers the blow, or it's the state. And so the Dennis Prager is like, well, if that's state murder, then prison's state kidnapping. Yes, which is bad, isn't it, Dennis Prager? That's bad. Kidnapping is bad, isn't it? Yes, correct.
I found that to be very effective. As to deterrence, it doesn't deter? Give me a break. Every single punishment deters.
Every single punishment deters. Yeah, so maybe we should pick other punishments other than killing the person. Like maybe if all listen to him. He's like admitting it.
It doesn't deter? Give me a break. Every single punishment deters.
Then use a different deter. Because we could agree maybe on a different way of deterring things. Maybe we can find it. If all punishment deters, then let's just pick a different punishment, Dennis. That's all we need to do. We just need to pick a different punishment. And on top of that, we don't even need to punish people. Like, I'm as a utilitarian, I don't think punishment is even necessary anymore. We're entering into a phase of humanity where we don't have scarce resources, we have an abundance of resources. We're transitioning civilization right now. Like that's what the Industrial Revolution is bridging us into. We're going into an abundance of resources. And so because of that, there are things that are now unnecessary. Like deterring, like punishment. Like punishment. Punishment doesn't do anything. All you need to do, if someone does anything wrong, is find a way to fix that as whatever was broken. Find a way to address that as best as possible. That still maximizes everyone's happiness as much as possible. But then the focus doesn't need to be punitive measure. You don't need to do punitive punishment. You just need to rehabilitate. Find a way to incentivize not doing the thing again. Find a way to incentivize not doing the thing again. That's what we should be doing.
That's one of the reasons we have punishment, right?
Hold on. Why do we have punishment?
Very effective. As to deterrence, it doesn't deter? Give me a break. Every single punishment deters. That's one of the reasons we have punishment.
We have punishment because punishments deter. Right. And But the thing is, punitive punishment is unnecessary. If all punishment deters, then just pick a different punishment.
Right? Drive in the high occupancy vehicle lane or the diamond lane or whatever you call it, wherever you are, and there's a $300 fine or whatever it might be. Why is that sign up there? To deter people.
Right, but what you need to accept, Dennis Prager, is that there are also other ways of solving the problem that sign is trying to solve. If we can accept that there are multiple solutions to problems, then we can also accept that there are multiple solutions, multiple alternatives to the death penalty. See, Dennis Prager admits that in this video, and he doesn't even fucking notice.
What if they said no fine? If there was no fine, everybody would drive in that lane.
And that would be great, by the way.
So punishment is of course it deters. So the people who say that capital punishment doesn't deter, they're saying that the only crime that is never deterrable is murder. That's it.
They say it doesn't effectively deter, and on top of that, you're killing people. You're just killing people. You can do other things. I thought that people have a right to their life. I thought that was inalienable. I thought that was something that cannot be taken away from your government. I thought that was mandated in the Declaration of Independence. I guess Dennis Prager hasn't read the Declaration of Independence yet.
It's an absurdity. It's all absurd. All the arguments are absurd.
Your
the only
arguments
one that's
are absurd.
not absurd is an innocent may get executed.
Yeah, that's a really good argument, Dennis Prager.
That is not absurd.
If that's not absurd, then if that's not absurd, then why are you saying that there's a moral case for death penalty? That's your claim that you make throughout this video. That's the thing you're arguing for. And you're now admitting that there is a really good counterpoint.
I fully acknowledge that. That's the one argument that I acknowledge is against capital punishment that is not absurd. So what you do is you have a system whereby you have reduced the chance of a mistake to virtually zero.
And this is the problem with that, Dennis Prager. Back 50 years ago, 100 years ago, when they didn't have DNA forensic science or whatever, back then, they would have still given the death penalty because they didn't have the science yet. So when you say that we have absolute certainty, that means you have scientific certainty now. That doesn't mean that you're guaranteed in the future always going to be correct. In the future, we might discover that there was a problem or that there's a new science or that there's this or something, right? That's what the DNA thing was about. That's why the DNA, when we discover that we can identify DNA and use that to track criminal cases and find criminals, once we discovered that, we found that the U.S. killed a lot of people with the death penalty who didn't do anything. They didn't analyze whether or not the death penalty was deserved back then, because if they did, they would have killed them anyways. They didn't have the DNA forensic science. They didn't know that was going to be invented. So they didn't know to wait. And so if we say that it's certain, absolute certain, that's still not an argument. That's still not a defense. On top of that, this is just one little attack on the death penalty. Killing people is immoral, full stop. Killing people is immoral, full stop. We don't need to really go any further than that.
I mean, there are cases where with DNA, or even video, where there is no question. With Eichmann, there was no question.
But back then, there was question. There's no question now, but back then there was question. They didn't have I need to say this correctly. Back then, they didn't have the ability to verify with absolute certainty because they didn't know what that meant yet, because they don't know the future, Dennis Prager. In the same way, we don't know what's going to be released in the future to find out that we were just killing the wrong people, because that's the whole point of technological innovation, is that eventually new technology that discovers, hey, you killed an innocent person. You're not solving the problem, Dennis Prager. You're not actually providing a solution to the problem that you're presenting. That's an actual problem that should completely destroy your argument in the first place, and you admit to that.
That's an obvious. With this guy, there was no question.
There's no question. How do you know that? Are you going to predict in the future that 50 years from now, there's not going to be DNA test 2.0 to prove you wrong? You're 100% certain about that. Interesting.
There is a scintilla of doubt. Then I would say we have to wait till there's no scintilla of doubt.
We have to wait until there's no scintilla of doubt. But that's not how it... Doubt is caused when you come up with a new DNA test 2.0. That's what causes doubt in previous cases that already happened. That's why we need to preemptively assume that we could be wrong today, and that we find out that we're wrong 40 years from now or 100 years from now. So let's not kill them ever.
But there is no position that society ever takes that makes sure no innocent will die.
Yeah, you can't do that, Dennis. So what you try to do is you try to do your best. That's what you do. You try to do your best. That's called utilitarianism. There is a philosophy for that, Dennis Prager, but you're still stuck in barbaric times to realize that the 18th century already happened, bitch. And what was it? Utilitarian? That might have been... Hold on. When was this discovered? When was this thought of? Yeah, it looks like modern utilitarianism began in the 18th century, something like that. So Dennis Prager's not caught up yet. He hasn't figured it out yet. He'll get there, everyone. Don't worry. He'll get there. He's a fucking idiot, and he's going to stay an idiot until he dies. And the things he advocates for is dangerous. And I think it's really stupid that we censor Donald Trump, but we don't censor PragerU. That doesn't make any sense to me. All right, everyone, let me real quickly save that video. And I'll get to the live chat. All right, here we go. Let's call this. Yeah, I think that's it. Let me see if there are any other videos I want to do.
America.
Yeah, there's one video I want to do. This is going to be a quick video. So this is going to be a quick video, but I just want to show you how the Lincoln Project tries to deceive their own audience. Take a look at this video and then we'll talk about it.
America is starting to breathe again.
No, it's not. I mean, we're in an economic disaster and we're still in the middle of a pandemic and many thousands of people are dying every day.
A decent man as president. A plan to protect us. It feels almost normal, but it's not.
But it's not. Totally correct, but it's not. We're not normal yet. We're not normal yet. Why are we not normal, Lincoln Project? The Lincoln Project. Why are we not normal right now? Here's why.
Republicans still will not admit that President Biden was legally elected.
Do you see why they try to shift the narrative? They try to control the narrative. This is the Lincoln Project trying to pretend as though the problem isn't Joe Biden. The problem is still the Republicans. Still, even though Democrats control the House, even though Democrats control the Senate, even though Democrats control the executive branch, the problem is still the Democrats. And the problem isn't even about the policy positions of the Democrats. It's just about blame. Or accepting blame and pride.
Feels almost normal, but it's not. Republicans still will not admit that President Biden was legally elected, which means they don't believe in democracy.
Neither does Joe Biden, by the way. Neither does Joe Biden. Joe Biden does not believe in a democracy because if he did, then he'd be fighting for a direct democracy every day. He'd be saying, let's try to convert to a direct democracy. That's what advocating for democracy looks like. We don't have a democracy. We have a republic, which is a representative democracy, which is absolutely crazy, by the way. We don't need a representative democracy. I can represent myself, thank you. And you can represent yourself. You don't need someone else speaking for you. That's stupid. You're an adult. If you need another adult to do all the work for you, to do all the voting for you, then you're probably not going to pay attention to what the fuck's going on. You need to give yourself power. Like, people just accept the fact that they live in a democracy and that the Democrats aren't the problem, the Republicans are the problem, and they're the ones that want to steal the democracy because something about a stolen election, blah, blah, blah. We're going to talk about that for months and months and months and months and months. And we're not going to put any blame on Joe Biden and the fact that he didn't rescue us with his rescue plan. And we're still in a problem. And it's as if, oh, you know why we don't feel normal? It's because of the Republicans not accepting the loss. That's what's not normal right now. That's the thing that's not normal right now. It's that the Republicans won't accept that they lost the election. That's what's not normal. Everything else is normal, though. Everything else is totally normal. That's the conclusion here. All right, I think that's the last video I want to do for the day. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Really appreciate it. I do want to say one quick thing before everyone leaves, though. You can leave if you want, but I'm just going to give my little spiel to my subs real quick. Let me fix this one thing real quick with my... I need to save this file. Let's see. This is Lincoln Project. Okay, so I just want to mention, if you're... live chat. We have a live chat. Jesus says... Ooh, we have... YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain... Oh, YouTube, you're fine. Is it delayed or something? Let me see if I think... Oh, it's fine. I need to do my outro anyways. So, Jesus says, eye for an eye leads to Hatfields and McCoys. Exactly. These are... if you don't know who Hatfields and McCoys are, that's totally fine. You don't need to know who they are. And if you ever see their names, just don't vote for them. That's all you need to know. And I think Jesus makes a good point. Eye to eye leads to that. That's what it leads to. It's a really shit philosophy. That's what it is. And that's what Dennis Prager advocates for. So let me say something real quick about the channel. Channel's doing pretty cool. We got like really fancy stuff. Now we have a really cool introduction that you might have caught in the beginning. I like the introduction. It's pretty cool. Let's just play it again because I worked hard on this.
We don't have democracy in our workplaces. We never did. The commitment to democracy is verbal in this society, limited to that voting activity where we live, but not where we work.
Hashtag forced to vote has made me realize there isn't a left in America, and that's the problem. There even the thing we all agree on, we couldn't agree on when it came time to do it. Half the left said, don't be mean, and let's wait for a better time.
We are just deprived of a national conversation about anything to the extent that we have one. It's just about these stupid culture war issues. It's not about what's really happening right now.
Yeah, I like that intro. That intro's pretty cool. This is the progressive politics intro that we're going to be using from now on. It's pretty cool. I like it. So thanks everyone. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider subscribing, dropping a like. Honestly, engaging in YouTube is the most important thing for this small YouTube channel right now. Please, if you're debating between donating and engaging in the community, please engage in the community first. It does so much more for this YouTube channel. And this YouTube channel isn't about me, it's about progressive politics. It's about a movement. And so invest in that. Try to find ways to get that YouTube algorithm to figure this shit out. So, because I think these, I don't know, I think these videos that are coming out recently, they're a lot better than they used to be.